Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the live video podcast where people love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them. And I am the channel proprietor and co-host of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies. We have a great show for you tonight. Really looking forward to it. Maybe not a great movie we're talking about, but a great show. And tonight, we're going to get into Persuasion. This is the 2022 adaptation starring, let me find my show notes. Stand by, everybody. Oh, there we are. Yes. Okay. Where am I here? Aha! Finally found it. Okay. Starring Dakota Johnson, Cosmo Jarvis, and Henry Golding. Here's this is the log line from Netflix. Living with her snobby family on the brink of bankruptcy, Anne Elliot is an unconforming woman with modern sensibilities. When Frederick Wentworth, the dashing one she let get away, crashes back into her life, Anne must choose between putting the past behind her or listening to her heart when it comes to second chances. It's directed by Carrie Cracknell. It's screenplay by Ron Bass and Alice Victoria Winslow, and it's an ampersand. They did write it together. And of course, loosely adapted from the Jane Austen novel of the same name. Again, starring Dakota Johnson, Cosmo Jarvis, Henry Golding. It also stars Nikki Amuka Bird, Mia McKenna Bruce, Richard E. Grant, Ben Bailey, Nia Towley, Izuka Hoyle, Yolanda Kettle, Edward Blumel, Afolabi Ali, Jenny Rainsford, and Lydia Rose Bewley. Now we've, you know what? I'll save the historicity for later, but we do. Let's take a look at the social nutrition checklist, and yeah, you know what? It scored a 75%, like a solid 75%. It's not even just me. Do I think it would qualify for reframe stamp? They did receive one, an official one at the end credits. It's also a union made production. Does it pass the Bechdel test? You damn tootin' it does. Is it a class conscious film? No, and that's no twice if it can be accomplished. It can. This movie achieved it. I almost wanted to take marks off. But yeah, it does. It scores a 75%. Now, as far as the historicity goes, you know what? Why don't we bring on our fellow my fellow co-hosts? We've got, of course, the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. How are you doing, my friend?
Awesome summer night. All set to praise this newest version of Persuasion. Just kidding.
Hey, you know what? If you felt differently than I did, Jim, I look forward to the engagement. We also have. Oh, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say it makes. I was going to say, yay, Sally Hawkins, but we'll talk about that later.
We also have another returning special guest, our friend Ms. Catharine Johansson, formerly of Ottawa, our nation's capital, now on the left coast. From Kamloops, British Columbia, Catharine Johansson. How are you doing, Catharine?
Good. It's the central interior.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that correction.
You're welcome.
Hailing from the central interior of British Columbia, the province on the left coast.
Cascadia, that's right.
That doesn't even I don't even think that left coast thing really applies. Like, I mean, it was kind of a lame slam back in the 80s, but
yeah,
you know, it's only lamer now. Oh, well, dating myself once again. folks, I did want to, and let me see if I can't find it. You know what? I don't have the overlay, but I did before we get into everything. There's a couple of things I wanted to bring up. First of all, yeah. Did any of you guys, before we get into this, did any of you guys see The Gray Man? Did you check it out, whether the brief time is in the theaters or on Netflix?
Have not yet. No.
No.
Not yet.
I was bored, and I watched it last night, and I'll be goddamned, you guys. This movie is way better than it has any right to be.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's still, you know what? It's everything you can imagine. Although the Russo brothers shot it, so it isn't as, objectifying of women as, say, Michael Bay, but it's still a stoic hero who has to save the day, including a little girl. So some of it's still kind of that action star, stoic action star. They don't, the star does not fall in love. Okay, maybe a bit of spoilery here, but they don't go for the standard star in love with the co-star trope, which was kind of cool. But yeah, it's just, I think it would have been a great winter movie, like almost John Wick or Atomic Blonde. I would put it between those two. More subs, or let's say more good story than Atomic Blonde, and just a little bit more fun, but not as cool as John Wick. Somewhere in there, I was shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the trailer looked promising. I mean, when it first came out, you're like, oh, this looks kind of fun, but yeah, you never know. I mean, that's
Netflix
somewhat
has
of a barometer, but yeah.
Yeah.
Netflix has a lot of good trailers.
Yes.
Can we say the same about their original movies? Netflix has a lot of good trailers and several good movies. Okay, everybody. Now that I've taken that, here's a bit of a blast from the past. Folks, regular viewers of the show will remember that we actually covered this movie. What was it, last winter, Jim?
Yeah, I want to say before Christmas, and then we did the sort of redux
way after. I think it was after Christmas.
Was it? Okay.
Because after Christmas, because I was so sick of seeing a certain kind of film.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
And it was getting really, and it's like, oh, I can't do another one of these. So we watched this film, Flashback. It's actually a French comedy written, directed, starring Caroline Vigneaux. She is a lawyer, kind of a cynic. Would you say a cynic? What did you say? A redeemable asshole.
Yeah, opportunistic and career-oriented.
Yeah. Of course, anyway, the magical African French person shows up, takes her through certain key points of French feminist history, and she is, well, redeemed. No longer an asshole. Rediscovers feminism or something. Anyway, we really enjoyed this film. We said so in our deep dive, and Ms. Vigneaux shouted out to us and actually came on the show. We had a great time chatting with her, got in the weeds on this flick. And since then, she won, of course, her film was on Prime, still on Prime, but also on the festival circuit. And it's a French festival, Festival du Film de Demain, which Google translates Tomorrow Film Festival. I suspect there's kind of some the future reference or avant-garde, but I think Tomorrow Film Festival is as good as anything else. Me and a friend of mine, as I was calling all my French-speaking friends, except Catherine, and going, what do you think of this translation? I don't want to just say Festival of Film of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Anyway, Catherine, you're bilingual. How would you
No.
translate?
That's a no.
Okay, Catherine is not bilingual, notwithstanding what's on her resume.
Or is she just being modest?
She's being like
No,
a
no,
German.
I'm
No,
not.
no. Merci, no. Anyway, I did. And yeah, Tomorrow Film Festival, I think actually is good enough for now, but there's got to be some. And so if there's any bilingual folks in the chat, we'd love to hear from you. Okay, our next, congratulations though
Yeah,
to
congratulations.
Caroline, who won this award, Best Screenplay, Best Original Screenplay from the Festival du Film de Demain.
And she won the award after she was on our show. So I don't know. I'm not saying.
I'll say it. It's because of us.
Yes.
Right. Make the connection.
Well, yeah, because that's what I'm sure she wants to hear. Two middle-aged white guys claiming that they're the reason for her success. Oh, this is the best. Okay, I think that's it. Let's get into this. For everyone that might be in the chat or watching later, I have a number of links in our description, including a link to our Jim and I's spoiler-free review. And again, there'll be a card somewhere. I also want to talk about the Historicity and some places you can go if you want to dive deeper into Jane Austen, the historical context, because some of these things will come up now, but some will come up later. There are certainly in this film anachronisms, but I think those are creative choices that the three of us will talk about once we're in the spoiler zone. I do want to just mention, though, a couple of eye poker or potential eye pokers. There certainly seems to be in this film kind of a maybe some more shout outs, let's say, to the revolutionary times, but certainly the time of war. And I think, and you'll see a couple of things down below regarding Jane Austen's time, the general opinion of her class regarding the Napoleonic Wars. I also think it's important. There's a couple of great and this will come up later. There's a couple of great videos I've linked regarding economics and Jane Austen, how much money everyone made. Let's put air quotes, their estates earned for them, why it was so important. A couple of great video pieces. I will also add links to, if you want to go even further. I actually picked up a book, 20 Myths About Jane Austen and what was actually important. And the writer actually, gives kind of detailed essays on a lot of these subjects, including the economics, political context, stuff like that. I'll put a link to that book. It's like $10. As well, if you are a Wondrium fan, it used to be called the Great Courses Plus, Wondrium, which you can get for you could get for 99 cents on Amazon Prime briefly. They have a great course survey of Jane Austen. This wonderful prof, she kind of gives a great kind of summary analysis of each major book, her juvenilia, the courtship rituals, all this stuff. So there's a lot of ways you can kind of get into the history, the historical context of Jane Austen's work. Links in the description. Then when you're engaging in the wackadoo debates on how accurate or inaccurate this is, you will be prepared. All right, that's all I have to say about Historicity. Does anyone want to add anything to that before we move forward?
No, I stumbled. I didn't just before getting here today. There was an article in the Guardian. I'm not sure if you saw it. It's why are we so obsessed with the Regency? It's like seriously, it lasted 9 years and it's overly represented in fiction.
That is a
It's
question
like
I have for you guys once we get into the and maybe we can even start there once we get into the help me out here. The spoiler zone.
spoiler
Great
zone.
question. So yeah, do you have anything to add though regarding historicity?
Yes. No, not at
Okay,
this point.
Catherine. Okay,
No.
and yes, I forgot that, but I am glad you brought up the Guardian because I also have links to a few articles, including, of course, there has to be a New Yorker article because there always has
Oh
to
yeah.
be. How to misread Jane Austen.
Mm.
Anyway, again, links in the description.
Okay.
All right. I think that brings us into. Where are we here? The spoiler zone. Okay, you know what? We're going to talk about story, but I think that is a great thing to start us off with, Jim. Why are we obsessed with the Regency? And when I say we, a significant enough portion that every few years there is a big money, fancy schmancy adaptation of one of the books. Catherine, do you want to start?
Of why is everyone adapting Jane Austen books?
Well, what? Yeah, why are we so fascinated with the Regency, or British nobility, maybe in general? Because I don't think
Exactly.
Bridgerton
Yeah.
is actually set in the Regency. Downton Abbey, nowhere near it.
No.
Um, let's say right after everyone stopped. It's almost like there's this magic period when everything started to get clean. Anyway, what do you want to?
I don't. You know what? It's. I'm not sure. Maybe it's that there was more of a move away from feudalism, and so it's sort of that it solidifies people's worldview. So it's sort of like that was that it's a time where humanity can be painted as the as coming into the Enlightenment, and I don't know if that's part of it.
What about you, Jim? What do you think? I've got a pet theory.
Yeah, there's these times. There's chaos in every time. Perhaps this was a little more orderly around this era. It's not quite as I don't know. I'll make a huge generalization. It's maybe not as drenched in blood as some of the other eras in English history. So it's one of those things you can call almost like Downton Abbey in that it's fertile ground for that kind of fantasy. It's and it might even be because you have messengers like Jane Austen that talk about that time, and maybe it's just that she and a few others are so effective at doing what they do is that it sort of it gives us a better picture of that time, or we can maybe wrap our heads around it a little easier.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You know what? I kind of have two theories, sort of developing as you guys are talking about it. I mean, in fairy tales from the start, it's never about this peasant and then they managed to get that field plowed and then they went back to peasanting.
Right.
Everyone interacts with royalty. So there's probably something a little deeper, but my pet theory had always been, and that's evolved over time, but my pet theory had always been, you know what, we're so enamored of wealth and privilege. It's just, we all have a deep, dark desire to be served. That has matured.
Yeah, but it's also the dream of class mobility, right?
Well, that's
So
no,
that's
that
the whole thing. Yeah, like that's the whole thing with Jane Austen is it's not a critique of, it's embracing capitalism, so that this idea that, oh, if you just work hard then you can make money and you can break into a different class. And the people who are the villains are set up as the set up as
idle
the
rich,
yeah,
like incredibly
exactly.
idle. Here, I was as I was about to say after, but it's matured. I have matured. I was gonna say, I think there's a double edged thing going on here. Most viewers know what economic insecurity is. Uh, and you've actually really got to be high up the food chain before you are really thinking, I get fired, I get fired. I don't care. Everything's fine. My life will remain the same. Most of us are only so many paychecks away from ruin. And even if it isn't ruin, this will permanently affect the rest of my life. And so I think there is some fascination with, wow, that's a life that there's some at least within it. They don't have to worry. There is no economic worry. There is also, and I agree with you, Catherine, although I think we see some of that in fairy tales. There's the simpleton who's actually the smart one who figures everything out, rewarded with royalty, usually in the form of, have my daughter. Or, in this case, it's the charming prince, in hers. So, but I agree with you. There's also an idea of there's a changing time. So there's a bit of, oh, those idle rich, look at those morons. And they will get there. I'm living in a time where oh, wait, they're everywhere now. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. I mean, I come at it from I don't like to think of myself as particularly aspirational, and I think a lot of those kinds of things appeal to a lot of. I think that's why I find Downton Abbey, for instance, quite twee and precious, and I just my wife watches
borderline
it.
offensive.
Yeah, and it sort of reminds me of sort of.
Cloves is not Altman.
Yeah, no. And there's a lot of weirdness going on there. It's reminds me of that Kurosawa movie High and Low. It's like, oh, anything we can do to serve the boss, and it's I don't know. It just sort of sets me on edge a bit. But because I'm not, I look at those people and I think, oh, what fresh hell is this? Like these.
No, but then you marry the Irish chauffeur, right?
Yeah,
Break
Who
the
turns into
boundaries and
a sellout
exactly,
liberal. It's
exactly.
like
Yeah,
one of those trade unionist types who gets a good cushy job in Ottawa and goes to lock up those radical locals.
yeah.
But back to Persuasion is that I just I watched the Sally Hawkins. I sort of watched quickly through the Sally Hawkins earlier today, and I just thought, man, she's the sanest one in the bunch, and I just hate almost everyone else. But I would just. I sort of wanted her to go on a Kingsman like church spree like Colin Firth did, and just break necks.
Okay.
And
okay, we're getting you're getting into
but I don't get that, but I see that it is a draw, that kind of that desire to be in that position.
Well, I do, like I said, I've matured. Again, I had a different view that I do now. That there is a fascination with, and why we identify with their heroines is it's like, well, at least somebody got out of the of the economic fear, right?
Yeah.
I kind of get that. I now have more sympathy for people who are watching this. You don't have a class analysis. How are you gonna, you're gonna approach it differently. Well, and when we move forward into the meaning, I think that will be we'll come up with Jane Austen, radical or all right. We do have one Dragon movie guy in the comments is saying that it's the accent, the British accent. That is what's fascinating us. So, which, who the hell knows? Maybe somebody do some research and they go, yeah, no, we did it with American accents and everyone thought it sucked.
That would be weird.
It would be odd, wouldn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move forward. Catherine, do you want to, once again, I'll keep picking on you. Do you want to start us off with this story, this filmed story? Was there anything you liked about it?
I liked it. I know you guys didn't like it. Rob, you hated it.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, no. And I know I wasn't supposed to like it because it strayed too far from the book, and the real Jane Austen fans were disgusted because, and I agree with some of that, like talking about, oh, she was a 10, right? Okay, that went a bit too far. But I thought some of the other stuff, like this was the playlist he made for me. I liked that. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And I like the whole riff off Bridgerton of bringing in people of color, right? Like, yeah, I like that aspect of it, and I was it true to the book? Not 100%. Was it? I thought it was a good watch.
You know
but
what?
I haven't seen the other ones. I've seen Pride and Prejudice, I've seen Emma, but I haven't seen the other Persuasion. So I think if I had seen those first and the bar had been set like it had been for you, then maybe I believe my expectations were lower. So because my expectations were lower, they were met.
They may have been well calibrated to the quality of this piece.
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Well, for myself, I can say it. I'm not sure we really hit on that really what was a 15-minute rant of mine and some of Jim's contributions. I really didn't have a problem like some of the wackadoos with the anachronisms. I'm like, you know what? I don't think they were that funny. They landed flat, but I wasn't like, well, that sucked. That was terrible. They would have never said that. Like I said, folks, woe betide you if you get into the Austen. Well, they're much like Marvel or Star Wars. There's a toxic fandom in the Jane Austen. Yeah, there's toxicity
and
there.
Also, there were chocolate chip cookies, and chocolate chip cookies had not been invented yet.
One of my favorites was the bitching about how you can't, there was no recording, so how could she listen to Beethoven in her bedroom drinking a bottle of wine? And it's like, I don't know, is it that big a deal? Apparently, to this individual, it was. That said, I think for myself, what I didn't like was, I guess there's a couple of things going on here for me, Catherine, that really bugged the shit out of me. One, the characterization. Anne Elliot and Dakota Johnson's Anne Elliot versus not just other performers, but the Anne Elliot in the book are so far apart as to be unrecognizable. And to give the filmmakers some credit, and I've thought more about this, and I'm like, one of the descriptions of Jane Austen in her later letters is she comes across as a little hard-hearted and judgy, much like this Anne Elliot is kind of judgy. She's a bit of a jerk. And so maybe they were trying to do not just a Fleabag thing, but more of a, go ahead.
Yeah, but I didn't think she was that. I don't think I perceived her as jerky as you did.
Yeah.
I mean, she was reacting to her circumstances. I mean, she was giving it out to people that deserved it, right?
Well, and I think that's part of the part of the change in characterization from unlike, it's almost like I don't like Anne Elliot, so I'm going to put Elizabeth Bennet in this story. But then all of a sudden, you don't get to have the other things that come with this story. You don't have these great moments where you see, because Anne Elliot's a character who I would argue is one who isn't seen, who isn't really heard. And so a lot of it's in her journal her letters, journal writing. Here, she's seen. She is seen by others. She's even her dear old family friend. What is it? Lady Stevens, Lady something
Russell.
or other. Thank you.
Lady
Lady
Russell.
Russell. In this movie, you kind of figure, they've gotten over their thing at the beginning where she says, well, I was really just trying your best. I'm sorry. Oh, well. In any other adaptation, as in the book, she, while loving and caring, is under the same trap as her father is, as her older sister and younger sister, too enamored of status and class and expectations, condition, all these other code words for, we can't marry that guy. That she remains an antagonist until just about the end. So you get a lot of, actually, it follows the same beats as the previous book, or as previous adaptation. You would, if you watch another adaptation, you go, I know this scene, and I know this sequence, and I know this plot line. What you don't get is the impact because of the way they chose to characterize her. And the kind of another change in characterization is it's Dakota Johnson. When was she plain in this movie? Ever.
Yeah.
And by plain, I don't mean it in in the book and even in the movies. It's at the beginning, it's the person who's like kind of a bit of given up on herself. And over time, she sort of her beauty comes back in manner and how she's viewing the world as her hope rises. And here it's, Dakota Johnson's Anne Elliot enters beautifully and charming, which is not what Anne Elliot is, leaves charming and beautiful, instead of bearing her sorrows as an adult would, kind of grinding your teeth, but going, okay, this is like an old teenager, with the passive aggressive sniping. And so I think it gutted all the great emotional content out of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, Jim, go ahead.
When you're doing another take of something, when you're doing another version, of course, you're not going to do the exact same thing that people did before. So I wonder if this was their sort of, just wondering aloud, if this was their take, because you have to have a fresh take on Austen and able to be able to actually finance the thing. And, we got, Dakota Johnson's on board and that kind of thing. So that, but at the same time, I think they for me, they read it wrong. You had reservations about the dinner party scene, a line that she tossed out at the dinner party, Rob.
That again, this is. Imagine anyone at a dinner party. Can you imagine if someone perked up while her sister and her brother-in-law are sitting there? He asked me out for he asked me to marry him first. I said no. Anyway, enjoy. What an asshole!
That's a pretty big deal for back then. When
it would be a big deal now.
Yes,
now.
Yeah,
and only one calls her out. And then the rest kind of, we all like Anne, That is not a person worthy of like. That is a move a la Emma, where somebody chastises her and she has to grow up. Where's the character development for Anne Elliot here? Oh, right, none. She just gets to be a snide snot. When she says, it's a great moment the earlier on with her younger sister, and the younger sister says, "Listen, and Anne's got to be with me because when you guys get tired of being with me, somebody has to be here." Something to that effect, and it's a great line and it's funny. And then she looks at she breaks the fourth wall and goes, "Somebody's getting self-aware," and I'm like, "Well, not you." Like, again, if I would at least have enough shame to go, "Oh, I am seen." Like, I got caught. We've been rude. We treat her. We patronize her. And I'm not saying that Mary's a great person, but you get to a
she
point where
deserves
you start to feel bad for these people, even if they are such pills.
No, you never. No, how do you feel bad for them? No, not at all.
Well, I think here's the main divide.
I think so. That could be it.
And maybe that's it. Like, because in a way, they're making a movie where instead of Anne Elliot being the adult, kind of got, well, that's Mary. As we do in our lives, she's going to be the, well, now you're more self-aware, or the Italian, or another great moment. And I think it's actually in every adaptation, but here is the only time I was like, yes, get her, was when the older sister says to her, "I don't know if you're doing this condescendingly or sincerely, but you're so beneath my notice, I don't care." It's the moment where a character is saying, as we might quietly, going, "I know what you're doing, I don't like it." That passive aggressive behavior, instead of, because she doesn't actually call her out. Anne never calls anyone out. She makes these snide little jokes, these little digs, but she never says, "Mary, I'm just sick of your crap. You're not sick. I'm going with them. You want to have fun? Come with." That would be a character you could admire. That would be a moment of growth where Anne, instead of just eating it, lays it out there, puts both her sisters in her place. "You, Elizabeth, you're helping the old man spend us into the ground. And although everyone's talking about how I'm too old to get married, guess who's a little bit older? Oh, right, you. So maybe." Then I'd be like, okay, this is a different take on Anne, but an admirable one.
Yeah, but that would never work with those characters, right? Like it didn't seem like there was any way to get through.
I agree, but I'm also saying that this one doesn't work either, because it's not, it's changing the character so much that you're kind of going, why hadn't she moved on from Mopey McMope?
Because it was true love, Rob.
It didn't feel like it in this movie, in part because, again, he's the only one who calls her out when she throws her sister and her brother-in-law, who's a bit of a dingus, but a pleasant enough one. The only one who actually writes her a letter to update her on stuff, not her sister. So he is a guy of the time, and perhaps all times, but he's not a bad man. Charles Musgrove, I'm referring to, folks.
Yeah.
And he's there. He's the one who is also humiliated in this moment at a dinner party amongst family.
But she has to sit there. She has to sit there with the love of her life, right? That she was persuaded to not marry, which was completely the wrong decision. It totally destroyed her life. She's a broken woman, and she's thrust into this situation, and so she lashes out.
So
So
that
I
was the
mean,
purpose of that, is just to lash out?
I don't know what the purpose. I would. That was
Like
not the best scene.
it
That was not the best scene in the
oh,
movie.
this is
I'll give you that.
terrible. Like it was a rough
It was not. It was not good.
yeah.
Like if you're trying to paint her as a sympathetic character, that is not the way. That's not the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's I
yeah,
think
I
oh, go
didn't
ahead,
care
sorry.
for that. The whole thing about like dropping her pants at the tree, right? I was like, come on, you're going too much, too much.
Well, and here's the
But
thing, like I do recommend, Catherine, you watch like a couple of the other adaptations.
yeah,
And
I
maybe
will.
that's one of the things that's kind of missing in our conversation. We may have to come back to it. And folks, in the chat or in a comment later, do we want to redo this and compare it to? We'll take one of the old ones and we'll compare the two. 1995 with Amanda Root, or 2007 with Sally Hawkins. I believe it's 2007, might be 2008 or 9. Yeah,
I think it was
figure that out.
2007.
We'll figure that out. I do know I
But
watched it on Prime the other night.
and the 2007 one was done for television, and it looks great. It comes across great. The cast is pretty strong. Uh, uh, Regarding Catherine's comment about the colorblind casting, I sort of get it. Why you would want to use colorblind casting now is because if you look at even 15 years ago, the 2007 version, to quote Weird Al, it's whiter than sour cream. Like everyone's just sort of like, I'd never seen the sun before, and all the little Musgrove ladies are like, woohoo! They're just like paper white, and yeah.
And
Anyway,
plus,
and
then you could get
everyone's
Henry Golding in.
yeah.
Again, like, I
Exactly.
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
the hottest
The
person,
interesting,
actually hotter than Dakota Johnson. And she's like 3 generations of Hollywood hot,
yeah.
concentrated in one human being.
One of the cool things was looking at the 2007 version was Rupert Mannion
He
from
should
Ted
have been
Lasso
Wentworth.
as Rupert
Oh,
Mannion as her dad. So and just a snide kind of, he plays villain. He's played a villain on Doctor Who. Same kind of channeling there, and
yeah.
he's really shitty to poor Anne, and everyone just sort of dumps on her. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. And Sally Hawkins is just, she's great in everything.
Yeah.
There's a short movie on Canopy with her on it, and she's devastating in that, like 15 minutes long. And so yeah, it's another good excuse to watch her. But yeah, very different. And that one sort of fit, even though I haven't read it. It seemed to me that it would be more true to the source book.
What, are you reviewing a
But
different film now?
no, well, no, I'm just saying.
Now it's like, you're not talking about this one, are you?
No. But that well, we're trying to convince Catherine to watch the 2007 version. So
well, I think
this is my-
I think she was convinced already.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
think
will. I will for
that
sure.
was not even a battle. I think she was like,
Oh,
oh, okay, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
Catherine's like us. It takes very little effort to get Catherine to watch I think this is good. Yeah, no, it's on the
Yeah.
playlist.
That's right.
Hey, do you want to watch? Sure. Okay. Back to this though, Jim. One of the here, I'll put it out to both you guys. One of the remarkable scenes is, and there's been great. I'll try and put the Vox link in the description before I forget. Please remind me. In the Vox description, or they were talking about, there's a great piece on the whole letter writing scene at the end of the film, and how this movie kind of gutted it. But I think there are previous scenes that sort of kind of foretold that it's like, nope, this director is going to talk about everything until the thing happens. And a great example of that is you have a scene on the beach before she dramatically walks into the water because but where they basically blab their whole deal and then do that, well, I guess we'll be friends You know, in part, I think an attempt to update the film.
Mm.
That said, then it leads into the accident, and in other adaptations and in the book, it is super clear, and we've seen hints of this already, but it's super clear that in a crisis, Anne's the one you want in charge, and super effective. Here, because they've done all this stuff and it's all kind of anticlimactic, it leads to the same moment, but I'm really not feeling it. And then when they have the post accident conflict in the bedroom, like previous adaptations, it's you want to strangle, you want to throttle Mary. You just want to reach into the screen and go, shut up, shut up, shut up. Your sister's more, but there's real moments where she sees the only person who actually sees and recognizes her like consciously is Wentworth when he's saying to others, well, no, Mary, she is the only one you can trust in this situation. You need to leave Mary here with her. She will care. I'll do this. Like you see this hint of how they're going to be such a great married team, which we also see in the Crofts, the ones, the admiral and his wife who've traveled the world together. You know, that hint of a different aspirational world that Catherine referred to earlier. But it is gutting at the same time as it's hopeful. Like it's got a perfect combination of ugh, and because Mary's like, I can't, and she just don't full on vapors and wailing and oh, I can't believe who is Anne to her, and this is my sister, and just total here it the way Mary kills it. And you know what, the woman who played Mary, great, a performance I enjoyed, but the way she does it, and there's a you know, and everyone, oh well, you know, Mary said something, well, I'm staying. And it's just like, well, this is one of the truly epic sequences of the book that really kind of sets you up for the rest of the story. And it's like here, it's like it's like a speed bump, not this big crash down and like, oh my God, it's all coming out now and we're gonna, you know. This is what bugs me about this fucking movie.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm so emotionally invested in Anne Elliot.
You're very worked up about this.
I am. And we haven't even gotten to the class stuff yet.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap.
Move it along.
Okay. Here, you know what? Anyone want to add anything to that before we move on and maybe engage with our chat? They've been there waiting patiently.
Yeah, just looking.
We even got a decent. Catherine, do you want to add anything to that, or do we need to come back with another version of this?
Clearly, there's a better version.
There might be several.
Yeah.
I know of two.
Yeah.
We're wrecking it for Catherine.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I already know the story, so
Yeah. That's it. It's true. Yeah, but you know what? A story well told can be told and retold and retold.
but the whole thing, it's not a unique story. It's it's so universal, right?
Love lost and regained.
Yeah. No, to marry for love or to marry for money, status.
Oh, that overarching, but
conformity.
this is also a big second chances film.
Yeah.
You know, which sounds like we're ready to get into the meaning, the themes of the piece. But before that, we got to do two things. One, Jim, why don't you, why don't you talk to us about the next movie?
A little movie called Tron, that a few of you may be familiar with, that we'll be taking a look and asking, how does it hold up? Yeah. I have my Bruce Boxleitner autograph picture right up there. I got at some
I expect
Winnipeg
that to
Comic
be on a
Con.
stand with a little art light over it. And
Well, no, it's just in glass. Excuse me, on the wall there. I've got a collection. I've got Chewbacca and the Russian guy
this is
Chekhov.
what he
That's it.
says, Catherine. He points
But
at
yeah.
it outside of frame
Why
and
could
says,
okay? You
I
want to see
totally
it?
have it.
I'll take it off the wall.
Well, I was thinking for
Here we go.
next week.
Okay, I'll save it. Sure,
Like,
that's a good.
This is like,
That's a good.
that was what I was hinting at. Hey,
I
for
thought
next,
you were challenging me.
Well, yeah, I was then, because it's like you were picking up on the hint.
But yeah, so we'll take a look at that. Jeff Bridges as well. Awesome cast.
Yeah.
In their youth.
And we'll also have another couple of guests, DMG, Brian from Dragon Movie Guy, and Cody from the Brock Up Side will be joining us. And the question being, does Tron hold up? Yeah, this will be another interesting, does it hold up? Okay, now that with that out of the way,
And we're
that's
doing it
almost
on the
terrible.
Monday night, we should mention, because
Oh, yes.
in Canada, it's a long weekend for our American friends. The first Monday in August is a long midsummer weekend for us.
So big thing is I'm going camping and I won't be back till Monday. So we're doing it Monday night. So that's Monday, August 1st at 9:45 p.m. Central Daylight Time, Coordinated Universal Time -5. All right. Back to this movie, but before we do that, let's say hello to the chat. We do have people in there. Like, it's been somewhat active. I want to first draw. Okay, let's say hello to Dragon Movie Guy, Richard L, and of course Katie Fowler, both there, and I see Jim. Oh my goodness. Richard L says Tron is also the theme of toys and giveaways in his childhood Shreddies box. But I also want to draw. Okay, Richard L says, yes, the Festival de Film de Demain in this context would translate to Films of the Future Film Festival. Films of the Future Festival. Films of the Future. See, my friend and I, Andrea, were talking about that, and it sounds like the future of film today. See tomorrow's films now, including this one that was shot last year. It was been on Prime for 6 months.
Yeah.
The future. Yeah. The future is now.
Tron.
Okay. Great to see you. DMG makes a great smart-assed... oh my goodness, this is bad. The only redeemable character was the woman jumping off the stairs who ended up in a coma. She did get better, and then fell in love with the guy who loves Byron.
She also married for love. There you go.
She did. But I think she had always kind of been, it's almost, there's the Elizabeth Bennet stand-in. Like, again, the movie already had an Elizabeth Bennet. Yeah, all right. Yeah. DMG does take bringing up an oldie and a goodie. Tell us again about Netflix quality productions like The Old Guard. Another film. Oh, $70 million. Where did that money go? Okay, and... all right. Ooh, Scarecrow and Mrs. King next week. Oh my goodness, there's an old-timey reference.
It was a Bruce Boxleitner reference, perhaps.
Yeah. Anyway, back to this, and let's get into the meaning, the themes of the piece. And yeah, Catherine, you're absolutely right. It so much of Jane Austen's work is that conversation about economic security over money. And I think what makes some of these books great in that respect is it at times has good characters choosing money for good reason. Charlotte Lucas, I think, in not Sense and Sensibility, but Pride and Prejudice. Elizabeth Bennet's friend, and she marries that idiot Collins. but she kind of laid like in, and I believe it's in the book, definitely in a couple of adaptations. One, the 1995 big long. Oh my goodness, I know way too much about Jane Austen. The big long BBC multi-part TV series where she just lays her out. She's like, yeah, that's great for you, Elizabeth, but I'm 27. I have very little chance. And then later, and it's just there,
Yeah.
I get a house, I get security. Like she really just totally lays her out. I don't even have the £1,000 you're gonna get when, like she really, it's just a great, you still pull for Elizabeth, but it's Elizabeth kind of being tuned into the bigger world, and that some women won't even have her advantages. And the way
Yeah.
she lays her out, and then later on, you see how she's adapted to it. Collins is still an idiot. Some adaptations, the one with Keira Knightley, have her kind of totally following along. Other adaptations have her a bit more of, I've figured out how to work with it. As long as I do this, he doesn't bug me, and I do this a lot. Like it's a great, and it is sort of how giving another idea of how a lot of women had to, that the circumstances are imposed, and how a woman can choose that because they don't have the options. And I think, let's go to this film. Is any of this here? What, Catherine, just based on this, you knew nothing else by Jane Austen, what would be the main theme here? Money versus love?
Yeah. Not money, not money. Status, class. It's not because it's not about money, because it wasn't about, because you had the nouveau rich and they were garbage, right? So if you didn't have a title, then your money was no good. So it wasn't about money, it was about status, right? So it's not, her critique is not about money, it's about feudalism, really, right?
I think it is. There is an economic critique in here. Yes, the elite look down on people in trade. One of the slams on, like she would make fun of, but I think that's also why she makes fun of the George Eliot Senior.
Yes.
That he's so obsessed with this baronetcy that, like, is literally a king sold it because financing yet another war, and he didn't have the means to squeeze the higher nobility like kings of yore did. And so it's like, well, if you buy this, I'll let you do this. And yeah, it can be hereditary. No, you're not actually nobility. You will not be in the order of precedence. There is no, but knock yourself out. It's like a faux nobility. But there he is, so fascinated, he will drive himself into bankruptcy, maintaining his status. But I think there's an undercurrent of, again, these women who have to find, because of terrible fathers, Elizabeth Bennet's father, a terrible father, these incompetent fathers, that they're like, I guess I'm on my own and I got to figure out what's going to happen. And I think the wins in most other books, and it's only this one where it's actually what you're talking about, Catherine, is that, but they still get money. They still win by marrying economic security. The love is there, and economic security. None of these heroines ever marry a poor man for love.
No, but because the other part of the story is that men who are smart and virtuous will achieve
eventually
that status.
Somebody will.
You got to give them a break, and they will achieve that status.
Only, I think
that's the other. Like that's the other moral. That's the
Yeah.
other moral of the story. And that's also why people enjoy it. People are like, "Oh yeah, because that's achievable," right?
Yeah. Do you think I'm kind of I agree in part. I think that's something clear in this novel, although I'm not sure it's really as clear in this movie as it is in others. Um, Definitely, Wentworth was a self-made man, as the Crofts were, uh,
Yeah.
and her father, the Sir George, I think it's Sir George, the baronet. He definitely you know, oh, these Navy men, they're ruddy skin. They're just the way he's like, I
Yeah.
can't have that in my home. They'll be looking at my shrubberies.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, at the same time, how does like I'm thinking of Mr. Darcy, you know,
Yeah.
born rich and yet seem to be as noble as like I don't even that's the thing. I'm not sure she's actually criticizing the class. I think she's criticizing the status. She's criticizing the people who have that status. Like that some are wastrels,
Mhm.
and some are good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like she seems to want her cake and her want the cake and to eat the cake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
That's it. In a lot of ways, the people are particularly shallow. But there's some good folks in the mix too, and it's you know I
hmm,
think it's there you're supposed to find relief that okay.
Yeah. Like they did that, like I'll say this for this adaptation, they did a great job of making her father horrible, right? So
oh, absolutely.
with like he's a horrible man with horrible ideas and just a terrible person.
Yeah.
So, you know, like is that so what so Jane Austen is presenting these views, and so there are these types of people and there are these types of people
Mhm.
and there are these types of people, and what did she really believe? I don't know. I mean, I think that like what's the I think she believed that a character like that is a terrible person. It's certainly presented that way, and we watching it in 2022 certainly see it that way. Oh my god, how could someone have such a view? How could someone have such an opinion? Right? Like that's outrageous to have such an opinion, and that that women are supposed to marry who they're told to marry for status. Oh my, what a thing to see in the world, right? When it was that was just how it was done.
Well,
So like what are these love marriages, like what we got business to take care of here. We got deals to make, stop with your fairy tales. Make the deal.
do the deal. I think though that like, and this is what's fascinating. I think it's why Jane Austen's
And
so
Jane Austen
accessible to
breaks
us.
through and says, "No, stop that. It's not
I don't know.
nonsense."
It's with Mary Wollstonecraft on the like that was 20, 30 years, maybe more. When did she write the on the rights of woman? Bear with me. It's Mary Wollstonecraft, right? Oh wait, Wollstonecraft. Wow, it's like the thing new. 1792, she wrote A Vindication of the Rights of Women. So and Jane Austen, the work was popular, and it's not like these themes are not obvious. Uh, but I now the way we're interpreting it, is it interpreted the same way as her contemporaries? Apparently, he was the Prince Regent at the time, George IV, early fan. like early fan demonstrating right like his own archives, which, you know, apparently early fan, so much so that Emma was dedicated to him because that's the way it worked. You were invited to dedicate it, which was basically an order to dedicate it. She gives the absolute minimum one can probably get away with. And then wrote to one of her sisters apparently that she hated the prince. She hated the princess's husband. You don't have everything right and say you hate the Prince Regent, but
Yeah.
you can hate people's spouses. So yeah, you know, it's like, even coming back to this, and maybe I'm kind of dipping back in the story. I'm wondering if the filmmakers were like, we're going to turn it on its end because maybe she's not as good, or she is not who she thinks she is. Just as some of these readers, like, I mean, these were her contemporaries, and people higher up the class food chain were reading this stuff. They're the ones who had the time and the resources to, you know, buy and then read books.
Yeah.
wasn't the growing but still nascent working class, the laboring classes. Were they kind of going, yeah, that's us? Or were they going, I know that idiot. I know that one. I know that one. Me, I'm one of the virtuous ones. I'm like Knightley, perhaps even richer, you know, or, you know, Mr. Darcy or Wentworth. I made my own money by, well, how did they all make their money? They were going over the Indies and, you know, slave trade, like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
A couple of the references are, they went to war and came back a very rich man. You know, I just feel, how does military work back then? I'm
private
so
privateering war booty. You got prizes. The whole crew could maybe not the whole crew getting rich. The officers could get rich because you'd split the prize money for what you captured in reward and booty on board. For all intents and purposes, these guys were commissioned thieves on the high seas. Everything's a bonus.
I guess a little bit washed.
Mercenaries with uniforms.
Yes, yeah.
And even coming back to this film, how did you read, Catherine? And well, actually, I'm going to start with Jim. How did you read the references to Napoleon, let them eat cake? Like, whenever she was playing with the kids, it was all kind of a nonconformist with modern notions.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that it comes up, but I guess she's probably not supposed to be one of the, you know, being a spinster at 28 or whatever. She's not supposed to be one of the more established characters in the sense the rest of them are married off and they've got their estates and all that.
Not Elizabeth.
Sort of thing. Sorry?
Not Elizabeth, her older sister.
A
great reference in the book.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that so he reads it's the baronetcy or something. It's basically the who's who for people with stupid bought titles. It's his favorite book. It's the only book he reads when for leisure or he's stressed by something, he reads that book. And we see it in this, that he's looking at it and the one page that refers to him. Then handwritten in it, because he's so proud, is that, you know, he's married a daughter off. I've gotten rid of one. Up to that point, Elizabeth, the older daughter, loved that book as much until Mary got married. And then she hated it, never looked at it, source of pain, because she is considered by all, including the family members, as the prettiest one, the most charming, and certainly the most status obsessed. and she hasn't gotten married yet. It's also
Yeah,
part of the
that's true.
intrigue later with the returned relative. But she hasn't, and it's too bad we missed that in. Actually, none of the adaptations really pick that up. There's only so much you can do, but we
Yeah.
definitely don't get it here, and that's very important. That she's part of what's driving the family into financial ruin, while at the same time, like, she is feeling that economic and social pressure herself. That it's like, I am not married yet. And she is in, as described by Jane Austen, the danger years. It's not really, Anne is just forgotten about. It's Elizabeth that's like, she doesn't make a move, do that deal, as Catherine referred to.
Yeah.
Trouble.
Mhm.
Trouble. Back to
Yeah.
Napoleon, though.
I mean, I know you've done some research on it. All that stuff is sort of, for me, just part of the noise around them. Like, it doesn't really seem to affect them, but of course it does, right? I mean, the naval officers go away and become rich, and they come back. But there's a reason why the
Or
English
people
Empire was an
die while
empire
they're
for
waiting.
all
You know,
that time. What's that?
they die. The women, young women, perhaps die while waiting for their
Yeah, yeah.
love
So
to
I mean,
make their
it's kind
fortune.
of touched upon, but there's seems to be, aside from a few quotes and stuff, a little bit of obliviousness as to some of the stuff that's going on overseas and in other countries and on the battlefield and that kind of thing.
I used to feel that way too. I don't know. What about you, Catherine? Any like?
Yeah, it wasn't integrated at all. It was just sort of thrown in as filler, as color.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
certainly agree with you on this film. Like, and filler and color without understanding. Um, by this point, like, it is the French Revolution, product of the Enlightenment. So many fans, then the revolution hits, then the terror hits, then the many, many wars, which I found out killed more young men proportionally than were killed in World War One, which was a bit of a demographic disaster.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden, when I learned that, I'm like, that's why they're all, man crazy. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's one of those things that the reader of the time, they didn't need to have it pointed out to them. Everyone's like, yeah, no, get married or you're fucked.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
They've set up a system where this is the only path for a woman of a certain class and education. And then all of a sudden they're like, we're going to kill off a bunch of the options for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think, and this is why I think this film is another reason why it's almost like it's oblivious of this historical context, and the meaning that is cooked into what has been unsaid. There she is again. By this time, when Austen wrote it, 1815, 1816, 1817, and even this movie is set in a brief moment of peace, but hopefully peace. He's on, I think, St. Helena. Was Elba first or St. Helena? His first exile, obviously on an island too close to the mainland. And so there's that tension there. She, of course, knows that, it's not he's gonna come back and set the whole thing on again, and maybe it'll go on forever. By then, she's lost some family members to it. One of her brothers joined at least the Home Guard, their version of the Home Guard. He did like his local comforts, but two times that he could have participated in local doings and goings on, he was sick. But apparently he did help deal with some fire or something. But by then I think this is not somebody to be writing little positive love letters to Napoleon. Like, just, and even then, yeah, of that class, like, she is not, I don't see anything here about tearing down the system. It's more, those guys aren't deserving. These people are. There should be some petty bourgeois mobility.
Yeah.
Peasants can still stay where they are. The laboring classes are who they are for a reason. But us folk, we should be able to move a bit, some flexibility there. And yeah, would not, yeah, like it's almost like they took what I assumed years ago was, wow, she really didn't give a shit about political context outside the gentry and the country. And they kind of ran with that because, yeah, now the more research I've done, it's like, yeah, she would not, like, that's kind of horrific, given the damage. Maybe one of the reasons she never got married, could have been just the guy that she could have accepted, who her parents could have accepted, and his parents could have accepted her, too busy dying one of these stupid fucking wars.
Yeah. And that's not, I don't get a sense of any of that going on. Like, it's very much.
Yeah.
No, she's too busy doing, I'm the evil queen at Marie Antoinette. It's like, not in 1815, they weren't thinking that.
Yeah.
Oh, fraternity, egalite. It's like, nope, was not fucking thinking that. And I'm not even saying that you couldn't do that, but you really have to then have this is, I guess my thing is why I can't even call it. It's almost like consciously not class conscious, only on the very outer stuff that, let's say, Americanist society allows. Well, that's a snob. So they're bad, but a heroine can still move up. A hero could still achieve greatness, We'll stick it to the blue bloods, but no real like class analysis. I like, not that I'm thinking Jane Austen was some revolutionary, but she, I think, would look at this and go, wow, this is lightweight. Wait, what? What? Why are we praising Napoleon? What? Why? Why? In her hard-hearted, judgy way, according to some letters. Remembering that most of her letters were burned by her family, at her direction, or at like one of her sisters is at her death. It's like, nope, they all go into the fire.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. A time when you put your deepest thoughts, like, think of what we might put in an email or in a text. It's like, well, I don't need that reviewed later.
Yeah.
And I'm not the Secret Service. It's totally private to me.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I don't know, guys. What are you guys thinking? Like,
in terms of
more on the meaning or the, is there anything we're missing
it's
here?
a little bit, to me, it's just that sort of, all we mentioned the word aspirational before. It's just that, I don't know even if it's keeping up with the Joneses, but it's that appearances kind of thing, and everything is all about appearances. I just, that, watching the earlier one today, and the story in general, it just, what are these? Just mind your own business, folks. I would say another important meaning is don't fall off stuff, because whenever they need something to happen, somebody falls from a tree. It reminds me of that Simpsons thing when they're watching Night Boat, and they said, oh, every week there's always an estuary or a tributary or something else, but there's on two sort of major occasions to prevent somebody from doing something, another character falls and hurts themselves and needs medical attention. So keep that safety line connected, folks. That's one of the big, whether you're climbing a tree or playing on the pier.
Former city employee that I am, all I can think is like, where's the goddamn railing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the
Yeah.
what kind of code do they?
Oh, it was a different time, Rob.
Well,
No safety
plenty
railings
of
on that key
rules,
brake.
just
Mhm.
not regarding actual practical safety.
And there was no signs either saying that you might fall, so they might have been overconfident. So
Yeah.
that's another aspect of it. But
Catherine, oh, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think you can boil some of this down anyway to kind of know thyself. I mean, she knew who she wanted and what she wanted and who the right guy was, and she knew. And then Mrs. Russell, who, if you're doing another adaptation, why don't you make Mrs. Russell a bad guy who gives her, because she's so bad, she gives her bad
She
advice.
is, yeah,
She's a horrible guardian or a horrible guardian angel or
family
whatever. And
friend.
then
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
she blurts it out and like, oh, you didn't know about the marriage, and even that she got wrong.
Yeah.
So that would be another take. But I think a large part of this would be something just as simple as know thyself. Like she knew and she didn't stick to her guns, and and I understand there's pressures, but she let herself be dissuaded from what she knew would be her true love. And it ended up in 3 or 8 wine soaked,
8.5, 8 years
eight and a
and
half
a
wine
half
soaked years. Yeah.
in the
So
language of the time.
yeah.
Catherine, something that Jim said made me think. Yeah, that did this film actually, other than the system, what villain was she facing?
It was her. It was the system, but also her father, and also the guardian angel, and herself. That she was persuaded to do something that she thought would turn out to be in her best interest, and in fact, it was the worst decision of her life. And then, like, we have a happy ending. She was able to correct it. So
Second chance. Second
second
chance for
chance.
Anne Elliot.
Second chance. Yeah.
Well,
Running through the Bath airport to stop.
I'm
the
just a
Regency
girl.
version of an airport
Yeah,
down
exactly.
that Royal Row. Like
I'm
Myself
just a
doesn't have a signal.
girl standing in front of a sailor, wanting him to love me.
Good one.
Well, because this film guts the letter writing scene.
Yeah.
Guts it. Like, Catherine, I recommend watch both Amanda Root and
Okay.
and because in part because they get it to a nice 2-hour length. There is a couple of series, like mini-series adaptations, but I recommend these two, and where I think they do far better justice to the key scenes. But briefly on that theme of, let's say, agony and hope, which is like something that's talked about, not in this one, but in others and in the book, that they're both characters are caught between agony and hope, that they're so close to what they want, they have all this hope, yet maybe this hope is not going to be, this love will not be requited. That their love has always been for naught. It is actually unrequited. It's unreturned, unfelt by the other. Do you think that? Yeah, like from our, I have never been. Oh, I really like her, but does she have enough wealth? Why do you think that theme still rings true? This idea of, because that's not something I think we face on a day-to-day basis. In a high school, there's certain cliques and status. Like, that's why I think the Clueless is such a great modernizing adaptation of Jane Austen, because it goes to that
Mhm.
one place where it still operates like a feudal society, you know,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you still have this really strict hierarchy, really strict regimented class system, you know. But in the rest of us, are we just stuck in high school? Do we recognize it? Or is it because it's so presented so well that you can kind of see the rules immediately, and that's what we're getting off on?
I don't know. And also marriage was different back then, right? Like if you got married, you don't get divorced, right? It was
You could get an act of parliament. It
I
did
mean,
happen on
yeah, if you're
occasion.
I guess
On
if you're the king,
occasion.
you could take care of people.
Well,
But
no, you could get an act. It would take an act of fucking parliament.
yeah, yeah. It's not like now, right? It's just like,
It's like
I'm
the
kind of tired
chartered
of
banks
you.
in Canada can get set up
Yeah,
easier than.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's not like now. Oh, I'm kind of tired of you. Yeah, me too. Okay, 1 year apart. Boop, boop, you're done. Next, bring them up.
And heck, in the
So,
meantime, get your shit out of my house. You know, or actually more the reverse. Okay, we're going to get divorced. We're going to have to save up so we can afford our divorce. You'll
exactly.
stay in the
Yeah,
basement. I'll be
yeah,
here. We'll have
yeah,
these rules. They may even
yeah,
have boyfriend, girlfriend,
yeah.
partners during as they save up to be able to afford cashing out of their divorce, like cashiering
Exactly.
their divorce.
All right.
Yeah.
What are the tax consequences here? What day are we going to pick that we actually separated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the house is underwater right now. Maybe this is a perfect time. Or,
yeah.
yeah, like any of these things, especially given that it's impossible to entail
So yeah.
like it
So like a
used to
bad
be.
marriage. Yeah, a bad marriage in these times is not the life sentence that it was back then. So it's a bit of a different.
Let me bring in though, it was something that wasn't really talked about in any of my research, but in separate research regarding the Salem witch trials, which I think are still applied to a degree at this time, especially with a general approach of, the if especially if the guy had to go make his fortune, he is almost always older, sometimes significantly older than the woman. To quote one researcher on the Salem witch trial and talking about, hey, there was, as always, there's tensions and politics that were going on. That sort of, yeah,
No.
I know. And petty shit like who inherited what.
Yeah.
In a world where your ability to make a living is based on this fucking farm that you're
Yeah.
digging, that you
Yeah.
have to literally live from. Anyway, advanced. It says one academic study. Well, death did then what divorce does now. There's lots of marriages didn't last longer than 10 years. You could have a really shitty husband, but people get sick, especially old people.
Mm, yeah.
Like, and never mind. He fell.
Exactly. No
Down that
guardrail.
cliff.
That was a shame.
Who knows? Maybe too many husbands and spouses were dying on. That's where the first stairwell code came from. It's like, this is just way too convenient. We're putting
Yeah.
a goddamn rail on that thing. They're going to
Yeah.
kill each other. They're going to have to work harder. Yeah, I again, coming back to this, like there's so much more here. This is why I'm disappointed in this film, guys. There's just so much more here. All right.
Yep.
I think we pretty much blew past meaning. And we've already talked about the next movie. What are we saying for our heroine here? Talking about the director. bear with me. I can pull up her name. Oh, right. Carrie Cracknell.
Cracknell.
Big theater director. I mean, I think it
Yeah.
shows in this film. Jim, would you give her a pass or a fail?
I give too many passes, so I would not.
Catherine?
I give a pass. You have decreased my
Oh
my
no.
That
yeah,
B plus
my
is maybe
enjoyment.
moved into C, or B minus is moved into C
I think
minus.
I've gone from like a B plus to a B minus. Yeah, you
Okay.
make some good points, but I would still give it a pass. I mean, I didn't turn it off. I sat through the whole thing and I had some chuckles and true love triumphed, and you got
It
the
ended
point
where
of
it
it.
needed to be.
It ended where it needed to be.
Yeah.
The message was received. It made its point. The acting was great. I thought, yeah, I'd give it a pass.
Myself, well, this may shock you all, but fail. Big fail. Really, a big fail. I
Yeah,
don't think this is
yeah,
good filmmaking, even. Yeah, it's not a good film, not on a film story level. Does this mean this woman will never make a good film? No, I'm not. This was a fail, but and I'm sure she's looking at it going, yeah, you know what? I really did let my cinematographer do whatever the hell he felt like while I was too busy working on the words.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think she made a good movie here. It will be interesting, though, if she makes another film,
yeah.
what she does. Because you know what? There's a lot of people, and I'm going to move into final thoughts now. DMG in the chat is going, woo, extended version, hour and a half, woot, woot. We are getting to the end, though, folks. But that doesn't mean I can't one more beg for a like, subscribe, and please ring the bell. I can't. Where the hell was I? Wollstonecraft.
If she made another movie,
She made another movie.
you might enjoy it more.
Well, yeah, she could maybe make a better movie. We'll see, right? But no, that Dakota, like, there's a couple of things going on here that I didn't mention earlier that I think are worth discussing. One is, yeah, this is a beautiful movie. Much like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe this. You got this flick. You also have this nonsense. It's almost like Netflix has decided, you know what? We can trust our cinematographers to meet our technical requirements, but they seem to be what I would call Netflix middle key. Not really too much of either way. It's not just super bright comedy, but it's not dramatic either. Here, this was stunning cinematography, like, and also shots I really enjoy. I love when the character's really small and at one edge, the long shot, the wistful long shot, like right out of Joy Luck Club. Beautiful cinematography, but I could honestly say it's like, I don't know what this is saying. I don't know what it has, if it has anything to do with the actual thing he's shooting. And there's a part of me wondering, it's like, some directors will maybe don't understand that they have to maybe even ride herd on their cinematographer. Like, for every Roger Deakins, there's some hotshot going, ooh, I get to make my bones with this one. And they're shooting everything for their demo reel. And because she's a theater director, or it could very well be that maybe he's like, oh, this sucks. Well, I'm going to make sure I look good. But it's stunning. Another thing most of the performances are fantastic. I don't think we saw enough of Richard Grant. I don't think we saw enough of a lot of people. Dakota Johnson, though, I'm wondering, and I actually had to pull up her filmography, and it's Dakota Johnson. She certainly has charm. She has screen presence and everything. But I'm starting to wonder, it's like either she is unwilling to really risk with performance, or maybe she's, maybe her range is limited.
Yeah.
And I'm just putting that out there to think about. Maybe somebody in the chat or in a comment later is going to go, what about this, this, and this? They're like known. But I got to admit, I'm like, you look at her filmography, you're not going, wow, that's right. Even in great films that she was in, I'm like, I don't remember her in that. I remember that performance and that performance, but I don't remember her.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't watched, she hasn't done too much that I wanted to see, so I'm kind of unfamiliar with her chops. So,
What do you, Catherine? What do you think? Like,
Yeah, I don't know her. I saw one of the fetish movies on a plane. But
But was it even good fetish?
No.
Fetish-ish.
Hollywood fetish. Yeah.
Yeah. PG
Anyway.
fetish.
Yeah.
I'm not. I get why. Like, I mean, you look at Kristen Stewart. Did those Twilight nonsense. Because hey, you know what? Being a big franchise, make your bucks. Totally cool.
Cha-ching.
But during and after, kept doing shit to a point where people finally got over that and started acknowledging that she is a good actor, that she can deliver. I don't see that in Dakota Johnson's work. Like she has something to prove to me. The answer would be she has nothing to prove to me.
Yes.
I thought that was clear.
Well, I thought you were maybe contemplating.
Did you?
Rob, do I have to explain to you why she's got nothing to prove to you? Like, that's what I was worried about. I'm like, no,
Are
I
you
get it.
self-aware? Are you self-aware enough to know that she has nothing to prove to you?
Oh, turn that right back on him.
Yeah.
Zing. DMG says, considering Dakota Johnson's acting pedigree is Miami Vice and Milk Money, I think she's already topped off with her acting skills.
The grandma was pretty good.
Hmm?
Tippy was pretty good. Tippy
Yeah.
Hedren. So, yeah.
Her grandmother, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. And Melanie Griffith. I mean, Jesus.
Well, I think that's the Milk Money reference,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It was kind of a random call up, but I
didn't.
I think Brian's being reductive as to her parents' talent.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, they certainly had long enough
Fuck, now I get the reference.
careers, but
Took me a while to sink in. Apparently I'm not. Yeah, well, this is the moment everyone goes, Rob pulls everything out of his own ass. All right, guys. Catherine, you want to add anything? Final thoughts wise? Anything else?
No, I thought, I thought it was good. I thought it looked good. Like you said, the cinematography looked beautiful. I thought she did a good job. Dakota Johnson. If you have an hour and 49 minutes, go ahead and watch it for sure. Make your own call.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Myself, I would say, you know what? I don't think I've ever. There may be one or two films where I said, "Don't see this. It's not good for your soul," or you're going to support something terrible. And I don't mean terrible in a quality way. I mean, this is not here. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, watch it. What I would recommend though is if you haven't, and I'll say this to Catherine and anyone else who hasn't seen the other adaptations, I envy you your first watch of those, because they are a couple of sweetheart films in what is one of Jane Austen's best novels. And it's like all she ever did was, after she did her little practice stuff as a child, as a teen, she basically hit home runs after that. Maybe one on base with Northanger Abbey. Yeah, you know. So anyway, yeah, I envy you that. If you haven't seen the Sally Hawkins or the Amanda Root version, um, envy you your first watch. They're great. And then when you watch this, it makes it more interesting. Even if I dislike this, I'm so glad I watched this, because I'm like, wow, it gives me more appreciation. It sparked my, okay, I got to get into why this is fucking bugging me so much. Maybe I really should read the book. Hey, it's only it costs no money on Amazon. Excellent. It's a free Kindle. A free Kindle read. Excellent. Moving on.
Great.
I need no annotations. I've got all the other internet bullshit in the description. Alrighty, everybody. With that done, I'm going to take this off. I'm going to remind you all that next week at, again, that's 9:45 Central Daylight Time, Monday, August 1st, special day. There'll be myself, Jim, of course, Cody from the Brockup side, and DMG asking if Tron, the original Tron, holds up. And we'll see you then. Otherwise, yeah, does anyway, enough of that nonsense. Let's all wave goodbye. Right. Goodbye, everybody.
Go see Nope.
Go see Nope. Yes. Catherine, have you seen Nope? Go see Nope.
I will.
All righty.